Hi, Brian. Back again, session or segment 4 of our podcast. We're looking at case studies.
Indeed.
When we do the professional diploma, trying to make it real, academic, as we like to talk about, right?
Absolutely.
We balance the academic and the practical.
Yes.
Just thinking back, we've done a few different ones, and I know we've done them for all types of different types of students. And the last one we did, remember correctly, was when we had students do a coaching session on each other.
That's right, Jane.
Yeah.
And what we have found is that as they're learning together, so when we come probably to, I think it's about the 5th or the 6th segment that we do, they have got to know each other, so they're learning together, and learning together helps to build up trust. They're getting to know each other, etc., and that, so that then when we break them out and they're coaching each other, the trust has built up. So it's amazing what they learn from each other when they're practicing. You know, you consider it's simulated if you like, but it is actually real coaching that's happening there.
Was real, yeah.
Yeah, it is real coaching that the students do when they're doing the diploma. And something I have observed is that after we do that section and then we come back to the next one, there always seems to be a bit of a closeness there. You can feel it's more inclusive between them, the students themselves, because they've learned so much and they're opening up to each other. And it's really setting them up for how to do this. So it's a really, really good practice, a really practical thing to do.
I remember, you know, in previous classes, we sort of gave them a fictitious problem. That, you know, one of them had this sort of fictitious issue. The other one was the coach and coachee and so on. And I don't know about you, but I felt that the real scenario that they were able to, if they had an issue themselves,
yes,
and they went away, of course, they did it in private. You know, if it was online, they went out to the breakout room, so they really knew what they were saying, just between the two of them. And I always found it very insightful when they came back. And they could, if they wanted to, didn't have to, but they could report on what they learned, both as a coach and a coachee.
Yes.
I don't know, I found that, as you mentioned, more authentic, and it seemed to be, for me, a lot more profound. And I learned more, I think, than I would have in a fictitious way. You know really what the answers of the questions they should be given or what they should be asking. But this was natural.
Yes, there's a natural, very much a natural flow in how they worked together, in how they did it. And I mean, I think that for some of them, it was real, you know, coach and coachee interaction that was going on, because some of them were quite open about, you know, well, you know, I sort of have this problem in work or whatever, you know, and they opened up about it afterwards to the whole cohort. You know, they didn't have to, but they voluntary did. And then others in the cohort sort of learn, well, you know, I've got that problem as well, or a similar problem.
Yeah, they sort of commented, remember that? Offering the comments and stuff. It's good, like a close collegiate type of exercise.
Absolutely. And if you like, I mean, it's like business professionals coming together and from different industries and as a group and talking about issues they have. Well, someone else in a different industry may have had a similar issue and they talk about it and solve it. And there are groups that do that. So it's very, very similar in the coaching when it comes to the practical side of it, and we break them out into those groups, those pairs.
Rooms,
yeah.
Another thing that struck me is, I know that the assessment is at the end of the module. They have to go and get someone to coach, yeah? So
yes.
They find someone to coach. It could be a colleague, it could be somebody that's not a colleague, it could be anything. And part of the assessment is that they first of all have got to do an evaluation on themselves. Come back to your 360 approach again. And then doing the evaluation on themselves, what they think and how they think they're a coach. Then doing the coaching and then getting the feedback then from the coachee as to how they did. And they compare it, what they thought they were like and what they were really like. And they do their reflective piece on that. And I know that's kind of, it is very much going through the stages that you like to go through, right?
Yes.
But I felt that they adopted that style when we were doing the sort of the practice sessions anyway. Even though they probably didn't know what the assignment was at that stage. They seemed to naturally follow something like that. Did you find that?
I did very much so find that, Jim. And although, as you say, I suppose you could say, okay, so in the lectures and that, so we're running to a structure, but the structure doesn't count when it comes to that kind of thing. People are free to open up and free to change things around, whatever, and become more naturally themselves. And it works really, really well. I mean, like, when you look at the feedback we've got back from past students and how they have improved, etc., and I mean, even letters of thank you. So they can see and they become wise to this, well, if I change my approach and I'm more helpful and I'm flexible and whatever, and be more open about how things improve. And, as I always say in these things, not only in your professional or life and work, but also the improvements in your personal life.
Oh, yeah.
They happen as well.
Yeah. I found it very interesting because, we've got a wide range of cohorts that come through in our MBA, probably more so than other universities or colleges, and that we tend to attract a lot of professional sports people.
That's right.
At the top of their game,
Yeah.
household names, from the Premier League and other sports. And I was always curious to see how they would adopt the coaching scenario, the real life when they would do it themselves, of course, but they would always pick a teammate, right? That was always the way. Yep. That's what they would naturally default to. And I often wondered, would it be different for the professional sports people as opposed to the mid-level executives or high-end executives we also get? I felt that they still would operate in the same way.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think so because, if we're a fan of some football team, Premier football team or whatever, in a particular player, and we tend to, put that team and put that player on a pedestal, whereas they're ordinary people. We're all ordinary people, and when they come into our area and they're working with us and doing their MBA and that, they're being themselves. And I think that they enjoy that freedom. They don't have, there's no one asking them for photographs or their phone numbers or anything else. They can just be themselves. And, and they reflect on that. And it's just a calm atmosphere. And that, we're facilitating that for them.
It's extraordinary because I'm just thinking of 3 of our former graduates, maybe 4, have gone on to become national team managers. One for a national team, America, for example, and another former graduate went on to manage another national team, and then 2 of them went on to become one's assistant manager in the Premier League, and the other one's a manager in the Liga of top teams. And when I had an occasion to catch up with them and chat to them, they would always mention to me the benefit of the MBA they did, applying things like SWOT analysis. I know we're not going to discuss that here, but I then it kind of, which I suppose it might have anyway, but it reinforced to me the business coaching is where everything comes together. Do you know?
Absolutely.
You have to draw on what you learned in HR. You have to draw on what you learned in strategic management, process management, all that kind of stuff are tools that you can bring together in the business coaching module. I don't know, did that strike you? But it certainly it began to dawn on me over the time, as I talked to more and more of the students afterwards.
Yes, absolutely. I would agree with that, and something else is, as we look around in the room here and we see this array of football jerseys, internationally known names, that they're sending us their jerseys afterwards. I mean, that speaks volumes for in how they did it and how much they appreciate, how they did on the course and what they got out of it, and indeed in the whole MBA program.
It is, because it's kind of like it's not so much that, I know we're talking about business coaching, which of course is very relevant to these kind of people.
Yes.
They have to deal with a range of ages in the dressing room. If they're managers or captains, or not them being captains. And it is always trying to make sure that they understand the issues, they understand what issues, underlying issues that could be at play, and business coaching is that too, because you have a remit. You don't walk into a company without being invited in by somebody senior,
True.
the CEO perhaps, or someone like that, and you'll be giving your own briefing about the culture in the company, what the company wants to achieve, the issues as they see it. So you are coaching in the context of that, just like a football captain or a sports captain or anything is trying to coach the members of the team in the context of what the team is about.
Absolutely, and I suppose the only difference is that a captain can on a football team can demand that this is, whereas with coaching you don't make demands. You're there to help. But also it's worth noting, do you know that not all of these, and a lot of them are international names, they don't all become managers, they don't all move on, they want to start their own business and whatever, and how can they capitalise on that, and that's something that they get out of, indeed out of the whole MBA. But when it comes to the executive coaching, is how to actually help employees, and possibly a little bit of how to recruit, etc., and that kind of thing. And how to create that team and create that culture to progress.
I think, look, we kind of reflect on the other segments or sections we've discussed. We've looked at business coaching as a way that can drive a strategic clarity, how it can improve decision making, and also get around any kind of organizational gridlocks that might be there.
Yes,
and it's all those things. It's not just you are coaching an individual, but you're coaching them as a cog in a particular system or a wheel of systems. So it's more than that, isn't it? It's more than just one-to-one coaching.
Yes, it is. It's a lot more than that, because like people's approach to things, etc., and that can change. And how to go about doing things, how to go about to make allowances for different people, different weaknesses, different strengths, etc., and they become more a people's person, and they become they understand a lot more.
How do you see yourself, Brian? So you are brought in by the CEO of an organisation. They say to you, "I have issues," and we'll say marketing. "I have issues here. They're not strategically aligned with the culture, or strategically aligned with what we want to do. We want to try and understand where the issues are." So now you've gone away. You've identified the group of coachees that need to be, let's say, helped or understood.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself then? How do you position yourself? Because you have to be empathetic towards the people you're coaching, but yet you're employed by the CEO, let's just say, to do the job you've got to do. How do you see yourself sitting in that kind of... Is it a grey area? I don't know.
Well, I would say it's very much an area where one has to have an open mind. And, you look at the objective is to help the people, and organisations thrive through their people, through their culture. So you can't be judgmental, okay? And someone has got an issue that's a top priority for them, but it might not be a top priority for the company. It mightn't necessarily be a personal issue. It could be someone wants air conditioning in their office. I mean, I've actually come across that one, and with a company with over 200 people, and this was a top priority for the company as far as they were concerned. Different things like that. But you can very much, like you said earlier, listen more than you speak, take everything on board, reflect on it as the coach reflected, and you go back for another session and say, okay, so you mentioned this the last day, and I just want to see, like, what is preventing this from happening, or why hasn't it happened? A lot of the time you'll find out it's actually a blockage within them themselves. There's a constraint, as I said earlier, about 84% of constraints are within ourselves, or they don't want to express themselves. And sometimes, and this is very, very common, they'll say to me, they could be working in a place for about 4 years, and they say, well, the last job I was in, Brian, I actually mentioned this and my boss shot me down. You're in a different company, you've got a different boss, and this is something, so, to try and help them to come into the present and be where they are and look to the future. And I think that's really, really important, because sometimes, they can think that every boss is the same or whatever. That can happen.
Just go back to real life scenarios again. Have you ever been in a situation where you've gone through the employees, you've found out that the issue isn't there, the issue is with the CEO or the management?
Yes.
And what have you done in that situation?
Well, actually, I'll give you a really good example of that. It was a small hotel, I think it had about 28 bedrooms or something like that. And the owner of it, I knew him, and he asked me would I help, whatever, come in and have a look, because he was having a lot of staff problems. And his wife also worked in the hotel. And they had a very busy restaurant, 2 very busy restaurants in it actually. And so I worked with them for about 6 months, and then I was getting the feeling, say, okay, so the problem is more the owner or whatever. And I eventually sat down with him one day, and I said to him, yeah, we can solve all of this pretty easily. He says, really? Yeah. And I said, you like playing golf, don't you? Yeah. I said, how about you go and play golf every day and let your wife run the hotel? And he looked at me in shock for a minute, and then he said to me, do you know, Brian, you're right. I am the issue. I know I'm the issue.
His name wasn't Basil Fawlty, was it?
No, it wasn't. But that had gone through my mind, I must admit. And he went and played golf, and the place thrived. Now, he was planning on retiring about 3 years after that. Because the place thrived, when he sold it, he got a much bigger price for it. So it can happen. And in another situation where I went in to help an organisation, they had about 26 employees, and I worked with the man who owned it first, and then I do a lot of research through observation. As you know, the academic side of it is really good when it comes to that, but of course it's practical as well. And I saw his approach to people, how he was with some of the people that worked for him, and I said, right, I'm going to have to start with you, and we have to change your approach if you want this to happen. And it's amazing. He actually ended up with, I think, about 6 less employees, and productivity went up. It wasn't that anyone was sacked or anything like that, but people then got on board, and productivity went up, and he became a much nicer person, and also his employee turnover was pretty high, so he was lucky to get. It was rare to get someone that was there a year, and some years later, because I still keep in touch. Now they're doing 5 and 6 year reviews.
Excellent, Brian. Well, okay, that's great. Thanks again for that. And just to recap, again, we are still, I suppose, considering this idea of reflexivity, and we do. That's the final part of the assessment in the diploma or MBA module. And again, you've alluded to it again, that you like to go in, you like to just sit back and observe. Ethnographical approach, which is a valid research approach, and get a better understanding yourself. And I know culture is your big thing, is what you're kind of renowned for, and understanding the dynamics, understanding the culture, and then getting your context and your groundings from that, and then reflecting then and having everyone else reflect then on what they talk about and what they conclude. So yeah, that's great, Brian. Thank you.
Thank
once
you
again.
Vincent.
Bye-bye.